So yeah, I'll start off first with just kind of a recap of the case, and then we'll go into some specific details on it. So this week's was R. So it's going over who kind of like a firm where a guy Peter kind of resigned, and Stephen, who's the director of research, is looking for a replacement. So he's kind of going through 4 different people. We have David Hughes, Gerald, Bert, Baum, David, Rena, and Seth. Rena's kind of the junior analyst that's kind of filling in the meantime until Stephen can find a new replacement to be the senior analyst again. So he's going through the interviewing process with a couple people. He's used a headhunter to try to find some new candidates for the position. So that's kind of a quick summary of the case. So let's go into a couple more questions. So the first thing I asked is to discuss the following with your groups: is discuss the pros and cons for all the candidates, and who and why would you hire that person that you come to conclusion for. So I guess we can kind of go down the line of going through the different candidates. So we can start off with Seth Horkham. Does anyone kind of give us a rundown of Seth and his background and what you guys think about him?
Yeah, I think whenever I'm getting mine pulled up, I think that was the one I actually chose for my recommendation of who they should hire, because he was one of the younger ones, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I chose him because I like that he was younger. He had his firm to the firm, and that was something that the company was really focusing well, and that he wasn't the best candidate as far as, but he had a lot of potential.
What do you think made him have potential?
Got my case here, so I can let me see.
My signal's going in and out, so if y'all ask me something, you might need to do it twice because it might skip.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, as far as his potential, where was it? Hang on, I'm just kind of reading over my case brief real quick.
You're good.
Some of the things I wrote down.
Well, I can mention some stuff because he was my vote too.
Yeah, go for it.
He was just mentioned. I'm not sure if it was an up-and-comer or a second teamer in the magazine that they kept referring to. I think they call it II, is the abbreviation for it. It's like a ranking of people that work in the industry. And so he had I think just this last year, he had gotten into that magazine as one of the better investment bankers. But also, he had been working with a fairly small firm, I think, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm.
And so the resources offered to him in the larger firm would just, exponentially improve his performance, right? The idea is the more resources he has, the more likely he is to succeed.
Right.
And the only con, so the problem, honestly, the reason I chose Seth was because I sat down and I said, okay, well, what are the cons against all these guys? And the two things they said about Seth, at least during the interviews, was that it was strange that he was leaving after 15 years of working at one firm.
Mm-hmm.
And also that he seemed like he was trying to please everyone, which isn't inherently like a con in my mind. It's kind of a positive thing. If you're hiring someone new, if their goal is to make you happy, then, that's a good thing in most cases. And then the other part of it is he'd been working there for 15 years. And so odds are, if he had the resources to keep growing, then he would stick around with RHS. Yeah, anyways.
No, these are good points. Yeah, no, he does seem like a good eligible candidate for it too. We'll go on to the next person. We can go over David Hughes. Did anyone put David Hughes as a person, or I want to give a background on David? Let's see. So David Hughes, if I remember correctly, he's kind of an older, seasoned guy. That's kind of a veteran in it. Kind of talks about in the first kind of interview process that Steven has with him is he says that he does look his age. I wonder if the job has worn him out. So he's kind of doesn't necessarily give him an exact age if I remember correctly. So he's probably an older guy. It says he was ranked second within the ranking, or ranked II, I guess. Yeah, it's still a good ranking with the magazine. And he does have name recognition. So that could be something I think very important in the industry. So there's a lot of networking. He does have that experience behind him, but that could be his age could be a plus or a minus for him to see how much longer is he going to be with the company. Does he plan on retiring soon? How long has he really been out there? So that could be something to look out for him. But me personally, I didn't put him as necessarily a high runner-up in my case analysis. Does anyone else have anything else they want to say about David? Cool.
Maybe just that he wanted the long-term contract,
Mm-hmm.
and that was something that kind of churned Steven off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird. He mentioned like that the semiconductor market like fluctuates pretty consistently, and so he asked for money that he technically wouldn't be earning. Like that wasn't reasonable to ask for. It sounded like he was asking for guaranteed money where there was none, where there wasn't going to be any growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does seem like an interesting market. I mean, I don't know much about that industry, but I'm not sure if it's more like I'm not sure necessarily how that industry works. If it's like commission based or salary based. But yeah, that did turn.
I think it's a mixture of both.
Yeah, the way that he described it, every time someone asked him how much money they would make, he said, "Well, anywhere from $100,000 to $1.5 million." So it was like, "Oh, okay." So pretty much anything. He would give me any money. Yeah, it was. They didn't really go into detail either.
Yeah, and definitely salary was a big turnoff for Steve whenever someone brought that up, which
it was David. I think David and Gerald both were pretty adamant about earning lots of money.
Yeah. Yeah, here's the next guy I was going to bring up was Gerald on that. Does anyone want to talk about – they don't put Gerald down as a potential candidate?
No, I thought it was really interesting that he arrived late to his meeting with Steven, and he was just like, yeah, whatever. He didn't even say anything or anything like that. And I thought that was pretty interesting to arrive that late to a meeting that would be for a job that's really important.
Yeah,
Gerald had like cockiness.
Gerald's a jerk. Like, he's kind of a jerk. He was. I mean, in the interview, he talks about like, yeah, and the juniors were all morons, and the copier was broken, and no one fixed that, and everyone was an idiot, and no one listened to me, and so I'm leaving. He just, he was very unappealing in the interview.
Yeah, he's very cocky, arrogant, negative. He brings up money. That's the first thing he brings up.
Yeah, well, I'm glad none of us picked him, though. I'm glad we're on the same page on that.
Well, but his positives, he was honestly second on my list. I mentioned it in my paper, but part of the issue is that RHS kind of focuses a little bit, maybe too much on the culture of the company and not just the hard numbers. Because if you look at just the product, the profitability, Gerald is probably the number one. He has clients that'll come over with him. He's got, he's good at his job. He's a terrible person, but he's really good at what he does. And so if you kind of ignore his character flaws and just say, well, who's going to do the best at this job? I mean, his clients didn't like him, but they kept him around because he was so good at what he did. And so he's desirable because he's really good, but because they focus so much on like the culture of teamwork and, working together as a firm, he's an obvious no for their specific position.
Yeah. Well, that was good insight, honestly. Thanks for having that insight. The next person we have is Sonia. I actually chose Sonia Sonia Mitha. I think she had a good, like her work habits of just being a go-getter. I thought really stood out to me as like her first thing she wanted to learn about international connections and stuff like that. So they got on a call with Japan and stuff like that. When she went, kind of got like a tour of the place, and she seemed very interested in it. She comes from a small, they call it like a boutique or whatever. So she's from a smaller firm, not necessarily probably used to the big boys, I guess, working in that kind of industry, that fast pace. But I think just she had that cockiness going into it. She was really, she seemed like she was good at her job, would bring a lot to the table. She did have the downside of her being like a single mom and wanting to work from home, and didn't want to travel as much. But it seemed like just the way she would work her schedule and be more organized in that manner. She was the most organized person there. I think that could definitely play into the culture of the company, of just her eagerness to work with people and her eagerness to learn. And with the small resource she had, it seemed like she was killing it within her industry that she was working before. So I put Sonia as a good candidate. Does anyone else have anything on?
I agree with the Sonia. I did the whole omit thing for this write-up, so I read the case study, but I can't quite remember the detail. But from what you described, I would go with Sonia.
Yeah, perfect.
It was my second choice. I was debating between Sonia and then my first choice, and I like that she was young, and so that was a really big reason for me, at least, because I feel like if you have someone that you can bring onto a meet that's young, that is mostly qualified for the position, to be able to grow into that position, be able to the company.
Yeah, she should be more malleable and able to mold into that, exactly.
Now, was she not willing to travel though, or was that
It never says she wasn't, but it's kind of implied in the case study that she wouldn't be able to travel as much as Peter, the old guy who had the job, did.
Yeah, I just said she was like she had 2 kids. She's like a single mother, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, I think she works at home 2 or 3 days a week. It said somewhere.
Yeah, it was something. She wanted to work home as much as she could, but then Steven said she'd have to come into meetings and stuff like that.
Mhm.
It was a very like face-to-face relationship they try to have with customers. Which I don't know, maybe I'm biased. I work from home and I love it, and I'm more productive at home. But my industry is probably different than one-on-one clientele.
Yeah, because of kind of Sonia seems kind of wide-eyed, a little like naive. Kind of was the feeling I got during the interview. I had her as like a junior position to get used to like the big firm, and then maybe promotion within the company. But I think it would be safer to bring her in at kind of a lower level initially, and then see if she can still perform as well as she did when she was working at the smaller boutique.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, promote from within, have that kind of talent kind of already in the company, so they don't run into this problem again.
Yeah, that's good. What did you guys think about Rena? So Rena is was like Peter's junior that's like temporarily filling in until they find an actual senior analyst. What do you guys think about that?
I put that Rena should be hired.
What?
I put that Rena should be hired just because the whole reason he went to go hire somebody is because he didn't want somebody that was a junior or kind of new at it. Whereas Sonia and who was the other one? There was another one that were younger or newer. And why is he going to hire them versus somebody who's already in his company?
I had a similar thought process. But the problem that I ran into in the case study was we have practically no information about Rena.
Yeah.
We have like loads of information about everyone else. And Rena, it's like the one awkward conversation she had with Steven where it was like, hey, I'm doing really good. And he was like, we're going to replace you real soon. Don't worry. You're going to move back down real soon. And then it was like, okay, we're done with Rena. We're not going to, no more talking about Rena. And so I struggled to put her as my first choice, but maybe she's really good. We don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was rooting for her because the company wanted to promote someone within so that they would have that person already at the company and everything. And an internal promotion, I feel like it's going to help the lower level employees as well, so that they feel like that they can continue to work harder and that they're going to be able to get somewhere as well. But at the end, I was just like, well, I don't think, from what I know about her, she's going to be the best candidate. But she could have been good, but no.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty screwed up how like to be in that situation would suck. I mean, just be like temporarily promoted for a little bit. So like, Rena doesn't she even know if she potentially could be it. Like she still doesn't know, and like, but at least from the case doesn't say if she was getting an interview process at all or anything. So there's like very little information on it. So it seemed like in the write up that it was just like she wasn't even an option for the most part, just like a temporary thing, but just kind of leading her on, thinking that she possibly could. So I think as far as Steven, I think he screwed up on that. That's just a dirty trick, I think, to play on an
Mhm.
employee.
What
Especially
a great employee, though. I mean,
What's
she
that?
was still working hard, even though she didn't know she was going to have the job.
Yeah. So that definitely shows a lot about her character, I think. But I think as like working for a company like that says they value their employees so much, and then kind of treat them kind of like dirt in that situation. Like I would be ticked if that was like my employer. Like, hey, you're temporarily going to be here. Then no, it's kind of like when you're in the mission and like they put you as like a zone leader or like a district leader, and they're like, no, you suck, get out, and you're like, oh, what I do. So I think kind of like that.
Well, and maybe, I mean, this is a weird circumstance, is the idea. I think maybe, like, if Peter hadn't just up and left, there would have been a structure in place that wouldn't have left Rena in this position. But yeah, it is still pretty messed up.
Yeah. Well, Well, that's another thing. I think we can. It's one of the other questions is, should Stephen have let Peter go? Because it seems like from the case, he kind of had some like he was tipped off a little bit that Peter would be leaving. And it seemed like Stephen didn't really fight too hard for Peter to stay. What do you guys think about that?
I don't know. It just right off the bat, just the way the case starts out, whatever, he's leaving, so he's got to find someone else, and he's in a bind. But I don't know. Maybe Peter was tired of working there or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really know why Peter left, do we? It just
Not
kind of
really.
says he's going. And Stephen knew because Craig, the headhunter, had told him that he was leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least said he thought he was going to. But yeah, I don't know how you. I mean, I guess you always have candidates written down somewhere. I don't know how much Stephen could have offered Peter to stay, or why Peter was leaving. So it's hard to really judge Stephen harshly for what happened because we don't really have all the facts.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's probably more preparation he could have done. Like, it doesn't seem like this totally blindsided him in retrospect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seemed like I don't know, just the feeling I got from the case of things that he somewhat knew before like Peter actually put in his like legit resignation. It seemed like he might have had like a hunch or something. But then at least from the case, the points we had, it didn't seem like you're like he said there was room to offer him more in salary. It seemed from the case, it seemed like he didn't offer him that. And then it put him in this predicament of trying to find someone new to hire and all that. And Peter obviously was doing a great job at what he was doing. So I think it's interesting to see like what his motives were. Was it salary that someone was offering him a higher salary? Because it did say that RHS doesn't like they would pay sometimes 20% lower than other firms, and people would stay just for that culture. So if maybe Peter was like, "Hey, I'm kind of dominating this already, and I can make 20-30% more or whatever somewhere else." I mean, that's a substantial pay decrease just to work with nice people. Like maybe it depends on what your values are. So I think it depends. Like he didn't even, at least we don't know what his reasons are leaving, and so I think Stephen could have dug in deeper for that.
Yeah, especially if he is the superstar that he says he is.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. That's pretty much the main points from the case. From everyone getting hired and everything like that. Yeah, so it seems like on this is really finding the proper way of getting the right candidates to hire for a job, maintaining employee satisfaction at work, and then hiring the right people to fit your culture. In this case, I think Steven did an interesting way of trying to find the right people. It seems like in that industry it's pretty competitive, and it seems like you'd have a different pool of people to pull from, even within his organization that tries to build people up. You think there'd be more people internally that they could hire. So I thought that was very. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to add about the case study or anything like that?
I want to figure out how to get involved in this industry.
Long. It's a very long case study to read, but
I like this. It was harder to write the paper for this. I was kind of struggling separating the problems from my solutions because they're kind of like, once you point out all the negative things about all the other hires, it becomes obvious what your choice is. And so then I got to the solution and I was like, I pick Seth. Done.
For my recommendation, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to have multiple recommendations whenever there's only one person that needs to be hired.
Mm-hmm.
I only did one recommendation.
I did like a hierarchical list. I said like, well, if this is the most important thing, then you hire this person. And if this is the most important, then you hire this one.
That's good. All right. Well, good. I think that wraps up the case study for today. Do we have someone that wants to be a group leader next week? Someone that hasn't done it yet?
Yeah, I can do it next week.
All right. Sounds good.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone, for taking the time to do this. We'll meet again next week then.
Thanks.
See ya.
All right, thanks, guys. See ya. Hunter, can you just email me that link and then I'll do all the group leader work on that? If you don't mind.
Sure.
All right, perfect. Hey, thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.